We are back out at ETTS. Now, after I did the driving the gun video, quite a few of you wanted a Wobble Zone video, so I'm out here doing that while I have time. There was one person who was very upset in the comment section, but most of you were very receptive. If you missed that video, you can go check it out up here. So I want to answer, what is Wobble Zone? How do we measure it? How do we try to fix it? And this is all from my experience. If you want more information on Wobble Zone or how to fix it, I would recommend you check out Scott Peterson. I will leave a link for him down in the description. Bruiser, Joe Dawson from Bruiser Industries, again, link down in the description. Modern Day Sniper has an online course that will also help to a degree. So check any of those three resources out. They will all help you with your Wobble Zone. But really quick, what is Wobble Zone? Because a few of you didn't know what it was, so I want to answer that really quick. The Wobble Zone, what Wobble Zone is when we refer to Wobble Zone, so this is your reticle. Now, ideally, it's going to be perfectly still. It won't move at all. Now, the gun won't move. You won't have wobble in your reticle until you do something to cause it to wobble. So the two most common types of Wobble Zone that I see personally in myself is something that looks like this, where it's like going out to the side and coming back, or you get the vertical. Some guys refer to it as like an infinity sign, like a figure 8 or an infinity sign. I typically see it like this. What you're seeing is a wobble that's going side to side or a wobble that's going vertical. Occasionally, some of you will get this, and we'll explain that in a minute, but ideally, when we talk about Wobble Zone, we want the amount of wobble to stay within the target. So if I'm aiming at the center point of this reticle, I want that center point to stay within the square. As long as it's in that square, I'm good, because I know that I'll be on target. If your wobble is doing this, you don't know if you're going to hit the target. So if you can't get your Wobble Zone stable enough to be completely on target, one of the things that Jay from Ridgeline recommends is that you time it. So typically you have more time on target. If it's going out and coming back, you have more time on target when it's coming to one edge of it versus trying to hold that middle part over and it's going off both sides. So that's just one way you can think about it, but we're going to try to show how we break that down and how we narrow it down. So the way we measure Wobble Zone is these reticles act like a giant ruler. So you can obviously use the target to measure it, but the other thing you can do is you can use these index markers on your reticle. So on this one, these are going to be 0.1 mil, each of these will, or sorry, 0.2 mils across right here. So we know this big hash line is 1 mil, and then we know that each of these little lines is going to be 0.2 mils. So that'll give you an idea. You can see how much it's going off the target. It'll give you an idea of how big your Wobble Zone is. So when I talked to Scott Peterson about it, he says, you know, ideally he wants to be around 0.1 because that's like near perfect. You're always going to induce some sort of wobble, but you want to get that Wobble Zone as small as possible. So I've got a couple targets down range. We're at 100 yards and show you guys how you can measure this on your own, how you can try to improve your Wobble Zone, and then some drills you can practice and work on later that will help you kind of see what it's doing. The reason that Wobble Zone matters is that when we talk about positions, there's three key components. It's going to be speed, durability, and stability. So speed is how fast we can get in and out of those positions. Durability is how well does that position hold up over time. Can we hold that position for a long period of time? And then stability is ultimately going to be our Wobble Zone. How stable is it? How much can we reduce that Wobble Zone down from that position? So there are some positions that are very fast to get into. So some guys will squat a lot on like a low standing or a high kneeling. They'll end up squatting that position. And it is very fast, it's just not very durable. You can't hold it for very long, and initially it is stable, but the longer you get, because it's not durable, it becomes unstable. So it's one of those things, you've got to find the balance of these three, and that's target dependent. It depends on time, it depends on how far you are and your own abilities and what the gun is capable of. So if you have a 1 MOA gun, you have less fudge room with this. If you have a quarter MOA gun, you have more fudge room because that gun is more precise, it's more accurate. You're going to be able to use more of that target. If you're shooting an MOA gun, you don't have that same leeway. There are some positions you'll get into that are stable, that you can get into fast that just aren't durable. You can get into durable positions that are stable, but they're just not very fast. Like think rear tripod. So guys who use rear tripod for support, it's a very durable position, very little Wobble Zone, just not real fast to get into because you got to set up the tripod behind you and maybe you have a front bag. So things to consider, but ultimately that's the part of this that Wobble Zone plays. And so you got to find the balance of all of those. So although we do want to try to get the Wobble Zone as small as possible, there are instances where you don't need to, right? So if you've got an 8 MOA target at 100 yards, you don't need a quarter MOA Wobble Zone, or, you know, if you're trying to get it down to that 0.1 mil wobble in there, you don't need that. I mean, if you're on target and you're staying within target, you can break that shot. And so that's why understanding where Wobble Zone or stability fits into the bigger picture is really important. Otherwise, you'll get sucked into what I tend to do, which is over confirmation, where you're trying to get the dot to be as stable as possible. and you don't always need that. So we're here at 100. I've got a couple targets down range, and I want to show you guys through the reticle what wobble zone looks like. So right now, as I said earlier, the gun's not going to wobble, your reticle's not going to wobble unless you're causing it to. So if you have wobble in your reticle, it's because of you, not because of something else. Because right now, I'm not touching the gun, it's sitting by itself on target, and it's not moving. That is ideal situation. It's once we get on the gun, once we start to put inputs into the gun, so when you grab the gun with your strong hand or your support arm, you get that shoulder on there, all those things are inducing wobble. So like I said earlier, the two biggest wobbles I see are the side to side and the vertical. So the vertical for me, what I've realized is usually because when I come on the gun, it's usually either too low or too high, and I'm trying to compensate with muscle tension, and that muscle tension is what's causing the wobble vertical as my natural point of aim is fighting what my muscles are doing. My muscles are trying to correct that my natural point of aim is off, so you get this vertical wobble. Same thing with lateral. So if I'm canted off to the side, and like especially in prone, I see that side to side wobble. And that is from, again, my muscles are trying to fight what my natural point of aim is doing. So my natural point of aim is off, and my muscles are trying to correct it, creating wobble. So those are the two most common types that I see. If you get the big diagonal, it's just because you're way off. It's like you have an elevation and windage situation where your natural point of aim is not only off left or right, but it's also off up and down. And so that's why you get that diagonal, because again, your muscles are fighting, trying to put the dot where you want it to be, or put the reticle where you want it to be, versus what your body is wanting it to go. So you're creating this tension. So wobble, the way I explain it is that we're trying to balance the inputs into the gun, right? So if you are somebody who pushes down, on the front of the gun, you've got to balance that on the back end. If you're somebody who pulls, you've got to balance the front end. So the more balanced you are in your inputs, the less your wobble will be. If you have a really bad wobble, it's because your your inputs are not balanced. I'm going to show you really quick what it looks like when you get on the gun. So this is that's my wobble. And then you saw when I broke the shot, it went down a little bit. So the way that target is set up is that you have all these circles and these rings, and I want to keep it in that main circle. If I'm there, I'm good. So my wobble zone in this position is pretty decent. This is something I work on a lot at home. But you can do the same thing with all positions. So you can do a standing, a kneeling, a low standing, a high kneeling, a seated, even your prone, and just see how much wobble you're getting and which way it's going, and then correct your natural point of aim as needed. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when I'm way off. So if I'm like way canted over here and I'm trying to fight it, you see how that wobble wants to go back to the right? And then if I go way down from the bottom, see if I can do this the wrong way. See, I get that little bounce up and down. So a quick way for you to diagnose your wobble zone at home and figure out what you're doing is get on the gun, get your reticle in the center, and then let go. And you see my natural point of aim went down. That's fine for me because that's normally what I do. I like to come in from the bottom of the target, and I can always push my hips back to raise it. So that's a normal thing for me. But I was pretty much in line with the target. So the other thing you can do is when you are on target, you can let go of certain parts of the gun to see how much input you're putting into the gun. So like I'll get here and then I'll let go and see how much that trigger hand was pushing the gun up. So I'll do the opposite. And then you see how much stability I lost at the front. So those two inputs are balancing each other, and then I'll try to do both and then take my shoulder off the gun. So you see how that input changes when you're not leaning on the gun. So you can do this in reverse to build a position. So at home in dry fire, if you've got a target that you can see, come into the back of the gun, shoulder first. And get that strong hand. And then your support hand. All right, so that's wobble zone. That's how I test it. That's how I check to see And so you can work on those things and figure out, okay, maybe I'm putting too much pressure with the front hand. Maybe I'm gripping too hard with the back hand or pulling too hard this way. Maybe my shoulder, maybe I'm leaning into it too much. Maybe I need to get my elevation right. So sometimes we're too tall and we get on top of the gun. Other times we're too low and we're trying to go up this way, and that can cause that vertical wobble. Other times you're just your natural pointer, you're not squared up to your target, so you can be off one way or another and it can create that side to side. So that's what I found. Maybe that'll help you guys. Again, this is something you can practice at home. So we talked earlier about the triangle, and we want to balance positions between speed, durability, and stability. The wobble zone is going to be our stability part. So then we can start adding in the other parts of that triangle. So you can start doing it with speed and durability. So the way you can test durability is I've got 4 targets down there, so you can take your positions. One is a standing, one is a high kneeling, a low kneeling, and a seated. You can do whatever positions you want, but you can practice this. And so get your wobble zone where you want it to be, and then do 5 to 10 shots. It's up to you at whatever your ammo situation is, but you can do 5 to 10 shots per position without coming off of that position. And if you can consistently come back to that same spot every time and reduce that wobble zone throughout that string fire, then your position is durable. So if you want to add the speed component, then you do build and break drills where you would come in off of it on a shot timer, come in, beep, how quickly can you get into that position, get stable, and then take that shot. So I would start with build and breaks doing 1 shot, and then do build and breaks with 5 shots or 10 shots. And that'll balance all of them. Okay, is it a position I can get into fast? Is it one that is stable? Is it durable? Will it stand up over time? Now, again, the application of this is dependent on time, how big your target is, how far the target is, what situation are you in competition. Typically, we have very generous targets, but there is an occasion where you get a very small target or a very difficult prop to shoot off of that wobbles or rolls or whatever. So you've got to figure that out for yourself, but this is the easy way to practice it. So I'm going to shoot some of these positions and see what the groups look like, and then I'll show you guys down there. Okay. I think we threw a couple in there. Barrel's still breaking in though. Actually, we'll just do 10 from here. This target is meant to be used for different positions, just for you to measure like what your groups look like, your impact shift for these groups at different positions. The way I'm using it is I'm going to do all standing. So the first target I shot was the 10 shots from standing, just to see if I get that wobble zone down and how durable that position is. Now we're going to do build and breaks. How fast can I get into this position while maintaining that same stability? All right, so in my follow through, reticle went high, so I had some vertical wobble in there, and that's just my body positioning being off. My natural point of aim was off. So let's see if we can correct that on this one. Time was a 690. .587. Yeah, that was off down. 515. So again, came in from right to left, so my natural point of aim was off. And so you could see it in the wobble zone. I was fighting it a little bit. .578. Little low. 625. All right, last one. Here we go. Oh, broke that one a little early. I think that one's gonna be high. 403. All right, so for this one, we'll do the bottom left target, and I'm gonna shoot 5 shots. So it'll be a build and break, but instead of 1 shot, it'll be 5. And this is to test the balance of speed, durability, and stability. Trying to put it all together. was only 4. All right. So 992. Natural point of aim, wobble zone, recoil management, driving the gun all looked decent. It was coming back to the circle. I'm still getting used to this reticle a little bit, so I'm testing this out and this gun is breaking in. No excuses, but that is how I test wobble zone. It's something you can do at home and do this for each position. So again, you can do all this in dry fire. It doesn't have to be in live fire. Wobble zone, you can get a ton of work done in dry fire every day, even if it's 15 minutes a day. Just work a different position. Once you're able to get that wobble small enough, then you start trying to do it with speed. Then you start trying to hold that position longer, and then your positions get better and better over time. You start to find where little things are causing you to wobble more or less. So hopefully that helps you guys. Hopefully it answers the questions. So based off the target. So this is just FYI, this is not my son's barrel. This is another barrel I'm just testing. And it's still in the break-in period, so it still will get better. But initially on the 0 range, it was about 1 inch to 1.5 inches with the ammo that I'm shooting today. So this is the first group. These are the 10 shots that we did. And, you know, we're pretty much centered on there. A couple of low shots, that's me. But this is within what the gun was shooting on the 0 range. So that's acceptable. These are the build and breaks right here. Again, pretty much similar to what we were seeing on the 0 range. The only issue is now we've started to drift a little low. Now that could be deflection caused by input on the gun, so I'll have to mess with that and see what's going on there, and also test it with other guns to see what is causing that. So we don't ideally want that, but still comparable to what we were seeing here. And then where it kind of fell apart when we put it all together was, you see how the group opens up. Now this is not within what we were seeing on the 0 range, and there's some other issues there, so we need to work on that. Now typically in matches we don't see where we've got to take multiple shots on a target beyond like 2. Typically it's like 2 shots on a target. I think 3 is the most I've seen. So that's probably why I just don't practice that a lot, taking multiple shots from moving into position, but something I need to work on as I develop this skill. But those are the results. Now you can do that for every position. So you can do that position like, and it doesn't have to be on these specific targets. You can set up index cards, you can do whatever. But you can go out there and see what your wobble zone is, see how stable you can get it. Can you get it stable enough for what you're trying to achieve? And then start taking shots and see how quickly you can build that position while still maintaining that same stability, and then try to incorporate that durability in there. And that's where it fell apart for me, so I will work on that. But yeah, do that, and that hopefully that helps you guys. Hopefully that answers the questions about wobble zone. And if you guys have any other questions about that, if there's something I left out, leave it in the comments down below. If there's something else you want to know about training that I'm doing, whether it's for this or for bolt gun, leave it in the comments down below. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Karate chop that bell so you get notified every time I upload a video, and I will see you guys in the next one. All right, I gotta go get James from school.